Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get singles for all your Force of Will and other trading card games, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer member Vite Ramen. Thank you for your support. Class is in session. Hey there, rulers, DMO73 here, and I am joined by the wonderful Diva Dan, one of our faculty Ruler School members. Say hi, Dan.
Hello, everybody.
Glad to have you here for our first ever episode of Ruler School tutoring sessions. Dan had the wonderful idea to use his member perk of jamming a game with us here on the channel to turn it into a series for you guys, talking about a very specific matchup, kind of walking through plays and kind of really doing like almost like a testing session, but on Untap, to kind of talk it through and get you the experience of it as well. Before we jump in, I do want to mention again, if you haven't already checked it out, Odyssey Games does have the 7th available currently for pre-order. You can check the link down below. Both pre-release kits and boxes are available, so be sure to pick those up. Dan, are you ready?
I am.
You're playing some Fieth Mooj, and you requested to play against Violet. This is kind of the matchup that everyone's kind of expecting. The big kind of choice between two for the sake of the upcoming GP. Are you going to be joining us at Caseyville?
Unfortunately, no. It's right in the middle of my move here. So
that's very fair. Well, we'll go ahead and jump in here. I'll just roll some D20s. I got a 6. 17. So you're certainly going first.
Yep.
So the thing with the things to note as we go in through here are mulligans. The certain thing to note is that Fiethsing is very interestingly able to kind of pop off turn 1 as it stands right now with both coin and not, because of what we saw, being able to tap Fiethsing and then go right into Melfi. Just some things to consider as you go towards your mulligans. I'll do some mulliganing as well over on this side.
Yeah, I'll bottom 1 here for
first mulligan.
mulligan.
That seems like a pretty good opening hand. Obviously, opening hand for this list, from what we've seen, if you're playing the one straight from Paul Martinson and Thomas, you're looking for things like Jan, Dolly, Melfi, and Priscia are kind of typically the opening hands you really want to see, and potentially back it up with a 6 Sages Welser. Doesn't do terribly too much against Violet, but it is something to be keeping in mind to deal with the Atomic Turbulence. That's because that's one of the big things that can mess your deck up.
Yep.
So with that, I've done my mulls, so you can take us into game turn 1.
All right. I'm going to go mull number 2. I'm going to bottom 2 this time.
Sounds good.
It seems like cheating being able to mulligan this many times.
It certainly is a lot.
It's a lot of options.
A lot of selection.
Yeah, I think this is not terrible.
Okay.
All right. Do you want me to talk real quick about?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I chose this matchup and I chose to play this deck not necessarily because it's the most powerful and I want to play it. It's more like to understand it, right? So to understand the meta, so that kind of see the different angles and different lines this particular deck would take as a new player coming into the game. I think you mentioned either in this office hours or two office hours ago, about this being like a control deck that just has a lot of combo enablers right now.
Yeah, very much so.
And I played this deck twice now, so no expert here, but I definitely feel that, right? Definitely feel like this is like a deck that wants to get its claws in, try to lock out you from your win condition, and then just beat you over the head with Priscia or whatever we can throw on the board.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll see how that goes. It all briefs well on paper, but I gotta be able to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So
all right,
let's go to our first turn.
Yep. So I'll call stone here. Oh, and I'll draw it to my hand.
Ooh, 6 Sage seems pretty decent.
And I will untap Mooj.
So the typical playline that we've seen from this deck in the opener is to use Feasting and green to go Melfi, and then like Melfi with a Big Show to like cast Big Show twice, and then be able to play Lycion immediately, and then you can kind of follow up from there. It's like the traditional kind of greedy start to the deck. Obviously, without Melfi, can't do that, but I would imagine if you only mulliganed 1 and then 2, you probably have at least 1 Melfi in there.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to tap for green, and then I'll use the colorless to call in Melfi.
Yep, and this is pretty safe against Violet. Really, the only thing you have to worry about Violet from her turn 1 is if she has Energize for Aegis, and that just to be able to deal with your potential Lycion play. But like beyond that, she doesn't have anything in her main package that can stop you from kind of doing this opening play line.
Yeah. Produce 2 greens with my ETB.
Yep.
And then we'll play.
Don't forget to draw a card because it's insane.
Yeah. Oh, I almost forgot that. Because why not? Let's draw cards.
Yeah, every single time. Let's do it.
And then we'll play the Big Show.
Sounds good.
Big Show goes back to my hand. We'll play the Big Show again.
You do get to scry 2 each time. Don't forget. You get to do some hand shaping there.
Peep 2. I got so excited just to jam Big Show.
Just to jam Big Show twice? Yeah, no, that's very fair.
Well, this is awkward. I really like these 2 cards.
But you can just keep them there, and then
keep them
there twice.
This is good.
Yep.
All right, and then I guess for free 99, we'll put in Lycion to play 3 green spells.
3 just chance. It doesn't even have to be green.
Yeah, it doesn't do spell. Yeah. Oh wow, good call.
Yep.
Okay, that's crazy.
Any chance you played. And the other thing that's crazy about Lycion is it can play for Melfi. So if you have another Melfi in hand, you can use Lycion to pay for it.
That's an interesting line. I didn't think about that. I'm not that cool to have that many Melfis in hand.
Unfortunate, but it happens. It's kind of one of the strongest plays we've seen. We saw at the tournament was using Lycion to then play another Melfi to produce green and blue. Use the blue to play Dolly and rebounce the Lycion back to your hands to then be able to recast it and have it recharged still, and then be able to automatically have a 3rd Big Show cast that same turn. So then like you're already set up for the Priscia loop after like 1 turn.
That's intense.
That's what I'm talking about in terms of like the combo enabler. Is like you can just accelerate to the combo pieces very, very quickly with minimal cards.
Yeah. Cool. All right, that's what I got for my turn 1.
So then in your end phase, we are going to go ahead and coin out Violet's effect. We'll draw 1, and then we're going to go ahead and discard the Aegis. We did hard mull for it, seeing this matchup. As the Violet player, you're absolutely hard mulliganing for Aegis so that you can try to pop these Lycions. So we'll pop the Lycion during your end phase. So that's just going to go, and then we'll go to my turn.
Sounds good.
Draw. Call stone with our Violet here. Draw to play. We have a blue stone. We're going to use that to play Heart to Heart Talk, which will get us to draw a card. And now we can use Violet, once per turn for free, which is cute. We're going to go ahead and do that. Draw. Discard a Wind. So then we can recover our stone. And then, again, we'll play Tiny Violet and get both of these back to our hand. Just like that. Because Violet gets us value. And then at that point, we pass turn to you. Once again, both of these decks on their turn 1 are very much just like setups. Like they're not applying applying a ton of pressure. It's just how much of their own independent engines can they set up on turn 1. What I just did is probably like the most ideal, right? Because now I have 7 cards in my hand, 2 activations of Violet per turn, and I have nothing in my graveyard, so I just got all that value for nothing. But then again, you're at a similar place, right? We know that you have a Big Show in hand, you're gonna get to draw. Like it's a lot of back and forth here.
Yeah, very interesting. So we'll untap.
Yeah.
And then we will draw a card. All right. We will call stone with Mooj.
Sure thing.
And let's see what we get. Let's draw to play this time. There we go. Oh. Just a Deepwood Stone. All right. So I think the ideal play here is to pay 1 green to Big Show for
Sure.
a 3rd time.
Sure.
And then, so this is where I lean towards more control. So maybe I'm looking right past the combo, but I really want to do this right now while I can. So I'll pay 1, or I'll tap Fieth to produce 1 colorless to
obstacle
bounce that tiny violet.
Sure.
And I know I'm doing it like in my. Maybe it's more optimal to do it in your turn, but
yeah. So
I
think tiny violet, because like regardless, so the thing here that I would walk back on is one, by tapping the Fieth now your 6/8 stone only produces void, which feels real bad because you have Big Show in hand, right? And the other thing is I'm gonna get to activate tiny violet regardless, and you've essentially let me draw 2 cards. Because what I can do here now is I can activate Violet, discard an Atom, activate Big Violet, discard an Atom, go to my turn, replay the Tiny Violet, and get those 2 atoms back. So this feels like a situation where I honestly, if there's not much proactive play you can do here, I would leave up Fieth and just pass.
Interesting. Yeah, that is a good call. I didn't think about it that way with giving you a free play there.
Yep.
All right, so since I got 3, yeah, or on Big Show, right? So we can go tap 2.
Well, so remember that Prisia can only produce Void to play Chance, and the summon side of Prisia is a Resonator. Yep. So that's not going to be possible.
No. Yep. I got spoiled there with Melfi.
Yeah, that's fair. So the thing here would be if you have a 6/8 or a Welser in hand, I'd certainly be feeling pretty comfortable with the Welser to try to cancel something big that might come down. This is a little, I won't lie, this is probably like the scariest start for your deck versus Violet, in the sense of like you don't have a ton of pressure, you don't have a ton of interaction, and we're going into a turn where I could potentially do the Atomic Bahamut playline, like Turbulence into Bahamut, so it's kind of a little bit of a hedge your bet kind of situation, but that is what this matchup is sometimes. Sometimes this matchup is just over in 2 seconds, and sometimes it's more of a grind. So
so with all that, is there any reason not to swing with Melfi?
Other than I mean, probably not. I don't necessarily see a reason to not. I don't really think your deck cares about what my life total is outside of it being 0, because of the way the loop works with Prisia. The idea of going Prisia into Prisia into Prisia into Prisia into Magnus Guardian Beast into the 2, like that's over 4 grand of damage. So like you're not really worried about anything chipping. So it's more a matter of like how vulnerable do you want to make yourself to Violet, potentially doing Judgment and swinging. So to me, there's not a real reason to swing with her, because like in this matchup, I'm either alive or dead, and that's kind of the matchup on either side of the circle, right? You're either alive or you're dead. Yeah.
Very philosophical words right there.
Yeah, very much so.
All right. Thank you for all that. So then the plan all along was just to pass and leave some mana open. Right?
Yeah. Yep. So then what'll happen is, in your end phase, I'll go ahead and use Violet for free. So I get to draw 1 and then discard 1, and I'll discard this Ethereal Wind, which then recovers my stone. And then we go to my turn, right? So, actually, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to do. No, we're just going to go ahead and draw for turn. So draw for turn. And then in recovery, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do Atomic Turbulence, discarding... don't have enough different atoms. That's unfortunate. We'll do 1, 2, 3, which will get us what we need to be able to silence you for the turn, as well as being able to burn you and your board for 1,000.
All right, so I guess while that's on the chase, we pay a green to play Walser.
Yep, that is the time to be able to do it. You can recover your Mooj start. Or you probably, recover the Mooj start makes the most sense. And then you can cancel it, right? So that doesn't do anything there. So that now whiffs. Still in our recovery, so you have the 2+1/+1 counters. We'll go ahead and attempt to use Violet's effect. And we'll draw. And then we will... What do I do here? I just discard an Atomic Bahamut, and then we'll use Tiny Violet, still in recovery as well, and we'll draw. And then we will discard this Brave Force, and then we'll move to recover. And then at that point in time, we feel comfortable enough to go ahead and just call Stone. Draw to play. So we've used Big Violet once already this turn. Oh, we get to recover. No, nice. Just recover Big Violet anyway. It's fine. So then what we're going to do is to pay 1. And we'll go ahead and remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we will cast this other Atomic Bahamut that we have in hands. And we do have 5 unique atoms removed from the game. So this guy now gets to come into play and do his thing. So he doesn't have a chaseable enter effect, or the enter effect isn't chaseable. But what we can do is he'll burn your board for 4,000 damage.
Nice.
And nothing that you play for the rest of this turn, if it has an enter effect, will come into play. And then we'll go to combat, and we'll attempt to swing 4,000. Now you still can cast stuff, like you're totally fine to still cast stuff here. So you actually, that play line of what we did earlier of holding that optical camo pays off pretty well here. Because we can use Fieth to try to bounce that Atomic Bahamut. And you already know that I discarded a Brave Force, right? So I have to respond to the optical camo here. I'll use the Tiny Violet to draw a card. And unfortunately, we did top deck the next Brave Force.
Nice.
So we do get to give the Bahamut that pump and then barrier to go through. Now, the only other thing that I could think of in this situation that, like, if we're talking about, based on what your hand is, right? So let's, because we're talking through things and it wants to be tutoring session to, like, what could you have done differently? Would you mind showing me your hand?
Yeah. I assume the best way to do it is just to put it on the field.
Yeah, that works just fine.
Yeah.
So we didn't have the second optical camo. Okay, cool.
No.
So the play line here that could have been different, which actually I think would have put you in a pretty decent spot to, like, follow up, would have been to, if you had the second optical camo, instead of recovering your Mooj start, oh, no, actually, never mind. The will would have vanished. Never mind. Ignore me. That doesn't work because of when we were sequencing. The thought was, like, if you recovered it during your main phase, you could have had, like, a second floating void, and then you'd have 2 optical camos. But we were in the void will would have vanished anyway, so, like, that doesn't really help. So, yeah, I mean, and that's just sometimes how this matchup works, right? Is sometimes the Violet player just gets what they need, and you just have to play through kind of both situations, because, like, if you didn't have the Welser there, then obviously you get canceled out, and then I could just play Bahamut for there's nothing you can do at that point, and then it's game over. If I didn't hit the second Brave Force, you were in a pretty good spot there. The only thing that probably would have happened would have been like using Ethereal Wind to then flip Violet this turn. But that feels kind of bad in this situation. Like at that point in time, you're pretty safe to just go off with with the Priscia loop. Because I've already burned out all my atoms in grave.
Yeah.
So like, I think that you played that exactly the way you needed it to. Sometimes this is just a matter of, as with any card game, sometimes the opponent just draws the nuts.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it just happens. So from there, we can kind of go into a game 2. But yeah, I think you absolutely played that exactly as you should have. This was just a case of it not being enough. So
I could have, I guess I could have fished for another Lycion a little bit harder.
Yeah, I would say like
to have some backup there.
Yeah, the cards that you want to see in your openers are pretty much Welser, Priscia, Lycion, Dolly, and Melfi. Like, those are like the only things you're wanting to search for, or to like hard mull for. Anything else on top of that is just making sure your combo pieces are in the deck.
Yeah.
And having things like number 13 is really great because you can have it for free instantly off of Lycion and all of that kind of stuff. So we'll go into game 2 with sideboarding. Do you know what? Are you playing your own sideboard, or what are your own takes on it?
No, so this is 10,000% net deck.
From which list?
I believe this is well, let me open it up before I start talking without.
Yeah.
So this is with sideboard. Okay. All right, so this has got Flute, Lightning Rod, Mermaids.
What event is this from? Is your event from?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think it's the Parma one because the Parma stuff came out after because it's got Morning Angels in it in the side.
Okay, yeah, that's probably Paul Martinson's list.
Okay. I wrote it down.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing what his list had for the sideboard. Okay. You still there?
Yep.
Perfect. And then you get to pick whether you want to be on the play or the draw.
All right. 1 second. I think my mouse just gave up.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Gonna use the trackpad now. All right. So I think for boarding.
So Violet has 2 primary threats.
Mm-hmm.
The primary threats that Violet plays are herself and Atomic Bahamut. And your deck is one that is very capable of dealing with Atomic Bahamut, provided you don't get silenced. So, Atomic Turbulence is also one of the biggest cards that you want to try to watch out for. Which is one of the reasons why the deck was playing the pop-offs into Neverend, so that you could give yourself Eternal in response to like Firestorm, in response to things like Atomic Turbulence. It's still going to make it difficult to be able to deal with the silence, and obviously Atomic Bahamut just still kills you, but that's kind of the way the deck is. Like, you do the Priscia loops at the end of your opponent's turn, so then you can like immediately go in and swing. Is the threat there. Okay. So things like Morning Angels not going to help much against this matchup. Things like Academy Guard probably aren't going to help too much against this matchup. Anything that's like a cancel can be effective. I don't know if he was playing Voids. Voids can be effective. Things like Intimidate, if you had Intimidate, also very good. If he was playing Surging Lightning or Pulsing Thunder, pretty great.
Pulsing Thunder were in the main board.
Yeah, that makes sense because of the Dolly, so you can make it non-random and you can cast it off of Lycion. So it's like anything that you can do to try to counter or make more difficult Bahamut, Turbulence, and Violet herself. Like, that's what you're wanting to bring in. Because outside of that, the deck has one threat, which is Improved Burning Robot, which is mostly a 1 or a 2 of, and is very easy to stop.
Hmm. Okay. So Lightning Rod Mermaid is probably
It can be useful.
abilities.
It can be useful. It's typically something that they brought out at the end of it's typically something that they brought out at the end of like the combo, so that like you couldn't like targeted removal very effectively. It also like steals things like Brave Force, if they don't sequence it properly.
Okay.
Fire Witch is a very good card to prevent the damage from the firestorms that are played, as well as if that gets brought in. A lot of the violets were protecting in one maybe and then sideboarding a second, so that's something to be considerate of because firestorm's a burn spell. And then the other element would be it stops turbulence from being able to burn your deck, which is pretty good. Would you like to go first or second? I think you probably always want to go second.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, yeah.
Having the extra will to be able to like leave up extra will to like keep your counter safe while you're popping, or like keep yourself safe while you're popping off in the early turns is pretty great.
Well, this is awkward. And then I'll bottom 2 for my last one.
Sounds good. Ready to go?
I am.
I don't know why my stone deck has 11 cards in it, but we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to move forward. That would be why. Suddenly one of my Everfrost is in my sideboard. Or is in my main deck. That's very strange. We're going to go ahead and shuffle the deck there. Draw to play. Gotta love untap.
Yeah.
We hit a stone. We'll go ahead and pay 1, and we'll attempt to use violence effects to draw, and then discard an Eternal Wind, so we can then recover. And then, my good man, that's all she wrote. We're passing turn. Very slow start.
Oh boy.
Very slow start for the violet.
I will draw 1.
Sounds good.
Call Stone.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget that you do have an Energize available. 6 Sage Stone. So this is a situation where there's potential word to tap the Feetsing to float a void and then recover. So then you can again leave up green void still because of Energize and Feetsing. Because like with a 7-card hand, and you're probably going to draw more cards this turn, Mood Start's not going to do a ton right now. So it makes sense to be more will efficient. So, like, in response...
Oh, I see what you're saying. So, in response to the enter the board effect, I tap to put a void up.
Yep, and then you can recover her. Yep, so now with Energize, Feasting is now representing 2 will, and you can still use your stone to play the Melfi that's in your hand.
Yep. How'd you know Melfi was in my hand?
I mean, you mulliganed 3 times. It's probably in your hand at least once. You've seen 19 cards of your deck. I think you're going to be okay.
I was sweating hard there because I wasn't getting the cards I wanted to see. All right, so I will... Oh, you can do it. There we go. Don't play Melfi?
That is a Melfi. I have no response to the Melfis.
All right, and then we will produce 2 green.
Sounds good.
And we'll go Big Show.
Yep.
And then Big Show again.
Yep.
So Big Show was the card I could not get in the draw. I actually drew it here. So I top decked the Big Show.
Well, there you go.
It was I was sweating over here.
The deck provides.
Yes. And then I'll play Lycion.
Sure.
And let me think about this for a second. I don't think there's any reason to hold back.
Yeah, so again, the only thing that a violet on 1 stone can do right now is like play an Aegis, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like Lycion is such that as soon as it hits into play, you can immediately use it to generate value, right? So like you can go off here. Typically what we saw from Paul in the event was he played the first Lycion and then continued to overextend to get the violet player to commit, and then played more Lycions later. The same turn.
Yeah.
So I think you're safe to continue.
All right. So we'll tap Lycion.
Yep.
We play Melfi.
Yep. More will is good.
Will is a good thing.
So you get to produce 2 will and draw a card. Again, this was typically the time where we saw brain turn on where we saw green blue being cast so that you could then cast the Melfi or the Big Show again to get to 3, and then you could play the Dolly to try to recycle the Lycion. Like that was typically what we saw. So is that what you're gonna do here? Produce green blue?
Yeah. So like, you know, since we're talking through this, I have another Lycion in my hand.
So the best play here, if you do you have a Dolly?
I do have a Dolly in my hand as well.
So the best play here, again, to like bait out as much as possible, because right now you're in a really commanding position, right?
Yeah.
The best play possible here is to play the Dolly to attempt to bounce the Lycion back to my hand or to your hand. And then that forces me, if I have it, to try to Aegis that Lycion. So I've now burned my Aegis for the turn. But then you just play another Lycion. And you're like, okay. And if I don't have something to pop the Lycion here, then you just get to play 2 Lycions. And you essentially just ramped 4 will for free.
Which is crazy. Okay, yeah. So I'll go definitely blue-green. And I'll play with the blue, I'll play Dolly.
Yep.
And I'll bounce.
And so
I'll
then
attempt to bounce Lycion back to my hand.
We'll use the Violet effects to draw. We'll discard an Aegis. We'll target a Lycion, so it pops it. But then you're just like, hey, I've got another one in hand anyway.
Yep, and then I play that Lycion. So I have 1 green floating.
Yep. Which is usually best to just, if you don't have something to pressure with, right, it's best to just go ahead and pop the Big Show.
Yep. So we'll Big Show with that 1 green floating.
Yep.
So that puts us at 3.
Yep. So that this actually puts you, if you had another Melfi in hand, you're actually threatening lethal next turn.
Yeah.
Which is a little gross. But again, these are, like I said, it's a combo, it's a control deck with a control finisher that has so much greed enhancing speed in the early game that sometimes you just pull the trigger super early.
Yeah, it's almost like so much greed. It was like uncomfortable making that play line because you're like, I feel like I'm super overextending, but it definitely puts you in a position to react now, right?
Right. Yep. We're the problem is right now, which we've talked about on the office hours, right? Is as of right now, there's not enough good punishes to make this extension ever feel too bad.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, it can feel bad, don't get me wrong, but, like, you have Lycion available, you have Green Void available from Feasting for a cancel, like, you've got a lot.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So with all that, I will pass turn from
You assumed you cast the Big Show one more time, and then I'll draw for turn.
So I got the 3 Big Shows.
Yep. And then I'll untap. Call Stone with Violet. Draw to play. Another one of those. We'll go ahead and play a Maribella. Or, sorry, not a Maribella. A Heart to Heart. Good?
The Heart to Heart is draw a card, remove a card from the game.
It just makes my Violet free.
Yeah.
We'll draw.
That's good.
Yay. Then what we'll do is we'll pay 1, and we'll play a Tiny Violet.
Okay, so in response to the Tiny Violet.
To the cast of the Tiny Violet, or?
Yes, to the cast of the Tiny Violet.
Sure.
We will play Welser, or we'll play Last Lecture.
Last Lecture, yep, to put it back in my hands.
Yep.
Sounds good. So we popped the... Oh, yeah, you don't even have to pop coin. You can just use Lycion for it. We'll go ahead and use Violet's effects, because we can now. To draw 1 and discard 1. We're going to discard an Eternal Wind and recover a stone. And then we'll play a Tiny Violet. Actually, wait a minute. What's going on the field right now? Well, you've tapped that. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and play the Tiny Violet. Tiny Violet trigger. get 2 Eternal Winds back to my hand because she's crazy and doesn't have to get 2 different names. And then we'll pass turn. Go ahead.
Cool. We will recover. I will draw a card. Call stone. So I'm at 3 right now.
Correct. But there is no reason to play Apricia loop right now because it can't swing.
Yep.
Right? This is kind of a position where because you have so much will and you're threatening, you have as much will as you do, you still have coin. You're threatening lethal if I don't do something. There's not really a reason for you to pull. This is where like suddenly you're playing a control deck, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, I want, you've already done all your setup, and so now it makes sense to like again force the opponent to act so that you can punish it. Because I'm tapped out, right? I have 2 activations of Violet, but you don't know what that means for my hand and everything else. But that's still, as the control deck, the position that you like to be in because you want to be reactive. And so having the most resources available to be reactive is probably your best bet.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting position.
So you're sitting on a grand total of potentially 4 will plus the Likey on tap.
Yep, so that's 1, 2. So I guess it might be a little greedy. Well, there's no reason I'm at 3.
Yeah, there's no reason to play it
there's
as a
no
big
reason
show
to
right
even
now.
big show,
Yeah, there's no reason
to do nothing.
Because 3 is
right.
3 is all you need for that.
Yeah, so I'm just going to do the control thing and just pass turn with a bunch of mana open.
Which is, in my opinion, the right call. In your end phase, we're going to go ahead and use Violet's effect to draw. Discard an Everfrost, which lets me draw another card. Then we're going to use Tiny Violet effects to draw. Is Tiny Violet effect okay?
For her effect, yeah.
Yeah, draw. And then we're going to discard an Aegis, and then use that Aegis to pop Lycion. And this is in your end phase.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it makes any sense to try to bounce Lycion to my hand.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So then I'll draw for turn, and then recover.
Yep.
And untap. Okay. I have a lot of cards in my hand.
Yeah, you do.
We'll tap some with Violet. There's a, let's see, is there a world here where I can... See, this is where math is fun, right? Because now I'm at a position where there's a world where I kill you, which is a little insane. You do have the problem is you do have the ability to Judgment Feasting, but I can get Barrier, but she has Flying, right? Does she have Flying? I can't remember. I need to see. I'm gonna clone her real quick. Sorry.
Alt face.
She does.
She's flying.
Gross.
Because why not?
Because why not? Alt face.
Oh.
Default face, and then I'll get rid of this.
Face.
Get rid of this clone. I don't need this clone's card. Whoop. Right, 4,000. That's 16, 18, 16, 24, 26, 30, 32. I actually think I kill you this turn. That's ridiculous. So we'll go ahead and attempt to perform Judgment with Violet.
Okay.
So we go invert. Not invert. Jeez. Alt face. And then we'll invert her. Revert. So now we have Violet out here.
Yep.
And so then we're gonna start things off. So, Violet activation, discarding Brave Force. Brave Force activation, target Violet to give her plus 600 attack, swiftness, and barrier until end of turn.
Mm-hmm.
Does that resolve?
Yeah, because that is a trigger off the discard, right?
Correct. Yep. So it's not cancelable.
No, I got no interaction with that.
And then Violet is going to give herself flying with that Brave Force. And then we're going to attempt to move into combat. Actually, wait a minute. No, we're not. We're going to do this first. I'm going to use Violet again. I'm going to discard Eternal Winds to give herself plus 200 attack, +2/+2.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll recover a stone. Now that she is safe, let's see. What am I thinking here? I'm going to pay 1. I'm going to cast Atomic Turbulence, discarding a Magical Loveliness and a Brave Force. Oh no, wait, and I need to do one more, and then I have to cast. I don't think that actually works. Hold on, we're gonna go back. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Sequencing. Gonna pay 1. I'm gonna play another Tiny Violet. Does the summon of Tiny Violet resolve?
Dang. You're summoning a Tiny Violet.
I am.
So, put 2. Yeah, so I think this is when I do it. So I'm going to number 13.
Yes. So that Tiny
Cancel?
Violet, Tiny Violet is canceled.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if that's too early, but usually when in doubt, you try to stop the combo early.
Yeah,
but...
yeah. No, I think that's the right play. I'll use Tiny Violet here to draw and discard.
Mm-hmm.
Draw and discard a Maribella. Or I'm sorry, no, that's not the card I wanted. I wanted to discard sequencing, right? I'll discard this this Ethereal Wind to then recover another stone. And I will play another Tiny Violet. To then try to get 2 cards back.
Because that is when it ETBs. Yep.
So I get 2 more. I get 2 more atoms back. So currently my Violet is swinging at you. I've got 10 damage on it, so it's swinging at you for 18.
Mm-hmm.
So then at that point, we attempt to move into combat.
Mm-hmm.
And we attempt to swing at you for 18 in the air.
Yeah, I got nothing to stop it.
Okay, and then we will respond to no blocks with 2 more Brave Forces to add another 16 to her, so 34. And then we'll also add another +2/+2 with Magical Loveliness, taking it up to 36. And that is also 4,000 damage because you take the burn from Magical Loveliness.
Yep.
So that does get me there, I think, if my math is right.
No, yeah, it's the math checked out here.
The only thing that I would have thought to maybe at least try to pressure, I think you did the right play of like trying to cancel there, because it just at that point in time I was worried you had Surging Thunder in your or Pulsing Lightning in your hand. I was very concerned, so I was trying to get to a point where I could try to like silence you with Turbulence.
Yeah,
but then you could just like Pulsing Thunder me in response, so like that doesn't really do much.
Yeah, no, I couldn't keep Magna Guardian Beast out of my hand for some reason. Apparently.
No.
And then this was
And then at that point you're pretty locked out. Yeah.
Well,
the only other thing that I could have thought to do there, if would be Oh no, because of the Magnus Guardian Beast being in your hand, that's kind of
Yeah.
not super great. The only kind of thing I could have thought to do there would be to go ahead and do the Prisia loop when I go to combat there. But that doesn't save you because the best thing you have. So, well, actually, no.
I could have Prisia'd
You could have
get
the
other Magna to get the Burning Witch, right?
Or just like done Prisia's loop. Yeah. Do you have another Magnus Guardian Beast in the deck?
Yeah, there's 2 in his deck.
Yeah. So Magnus Guardian Beast. You actually would have been in fine shape there either way too, because what you could have done is if you let the Tiny Violet resolve, right?
Mm-hmm.
I go and I try to do the Turbulence thing. You respond to Turbulence by popping the trigger on the Prisia to then do the Prisia loop. It ends with Magnus Guardian Beast. That gets you a Neverend and a Fire Witch. And then you still have Feasting up to be able to tap and give all your dudes Eternal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, you just crack back for lethal. So let's actually walk that through, right? For the sake of the video, right?
Yeah.
So let's say I've done the flip. I've done the flip here. Gotta backtrack a bit. I've got the Tiny Violet here. Trying to do the Turbulence playline. So the threats that I'm dealing with are a Turbulence. So let's say I get the will here. I've got the second Violet in hand. I recycle up. I pitch these 3 with Violet still out here, so that I can try to do 1,000 to your board. Right? You still got the seal in your hand, the number 13.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't care. You let that. You're letting the Tiny Violet resolve. The Turbulence tries to go off. In response to the Turbulence, we Prisia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then Prisia gets you Prisia, gets you Prisia, gets you Prisia, gets you Prisia.
Yeah. So that will put through all 4 Prisias.
All 4 Prisias into the field. You get the Magnus Guardian Beast. And this is in response to Turbulence. So, like, you feel pretty safe here, especially since I just discarded a bunch of atoms, right?
Yep.
So the Prisias come into play.
The Guardian
Magnus Beast comes into play. You get to grab the Burning Witch.
Yep.
And a Neverend.
Yep. So P didn't come into play. The board is too full.
The board is too full. Oh, it doesn't prevent by chance or abilities. So
Ooh, yeah, that's a good point.
So
that's not actually gonna. Well, the 400 direct damage from the last atom.
Oh yeah, and then would stop the 400 direct, which is what I needed to be able to kill you. So that's still good.
Yeah.
So we're here, and then your chant is just like it happens. It great. So that resolves there. At that point in time, I would probably go ahead and use Violet to pump herself up again, so that I can recover a stone. We get this Violet back. I get a couple of Brave Forces back to my hands. But even then, because you have the Witch and I've already flipped, there's not much I'm going to be able to do there. Because, like, the best I can do, or actually probably what I do, is you don't currently... Do you have any flyers outside of... Well, it's still not lethal, so it wouldn't matter. Yeah, no, so I'd actually lose here. Because my best bet there at that point, you're still at 4,000 life, is to grab these 2 Magical Loveliness to pump her up again. Doesn't burn you, so I can tap down the Neverend.
Yeah.
Because it's your only flyer. But even then, like we said, I needed the Magical Loveliness to burn you, because otherwise I'm only dealing a maximum of 36.
Yep.
And then I'm dead.
Yep.
I'm dead on crackback, right? I've got 2 cards in hand. They're not really doing me much. You're threatening well over 4,000 damage. And I'm just executionered.
Which is pretty insane considering how far into your combo turn you got before it went sideways for you, right? Like,
right, exactly. This is a format where like punishes certainly exist, and I think this is like the good takeaway from this session, right? Is punishes absolutely exist, but in this match especially, like decision trees are super important.
Yeah.
Decision trees are absolutely super important, and then brain turn on. Like decision trees are super important, and then like knowing when to be able to pull the trigger on the counter can actually get you a ton of value, right?
Absolutely.
So like I chose to try to get greedy there. If I had played better in my game, like if I had been more cognizant or thinking about like the fact that we're in game 2 and thinking about this potential playline of the Witch of Quenched Fires, right? I probably wouldn't have judgmented because I had the Turbulence in hand. So again, lesson plans for the matchup, right? So like my game plan here then becomes stick Tiny Violets to have as much pressure as possible and never not have Turbulence ready.
Yep.
So then as soon as you get this Magna's Guardian Beast on the chase, I'm going to burn your board.
Yep.
Right? But, because again, at this point, if I had waited, if I just established a board and you'd been like, well, you gave me an opportunity, I'll play the Prisia, right? You currently don't have Cancel Will available unless you have another Wellstar in your hand. So I'm safe to then pop this entire board of stuff outside of and then you have a Never End and a Witch of Quenched Fires that come into play after the fact, but significantly less pressure.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of ups and downs, and I think also this is probably one of the reasons we've seen the Parma lists kind of shift to be significantly more diverse color-wise in an effort to take the Fieth Mooj start deck in less of a one-win con avenue. It's also one of the reasons why the Turbulence play wasn't necessarily to like burn out the board, isn't necessarily effective against like the Rhea variant because they're playing Institute, right?
Yeah.
And so they can like have the pumps to be able to survive and stuff like that. But it is by no means a straightforward matchup.
No, right? Yeah, I was a little bit worried, right, that I asked for this particular matchup because I didn't want it to be boring. Like, because the intent is, right, good value for people in my position, right? And
right.
There is no way, even watching all the GPs playing in the GP, the online one, right? There's no way I would be able to, seen this play line from both sides to truly understand, like, the final decision point is hanging on to that Atomic Turbulence, encountering my counter from your popping off, right? Like it's a second level counter. And I would have never picked that up unless we, played this matchup.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's one of the reasons why this matchup is so weird, because we've had control matchups, and this is kind of where we can wrap it up, right? So the kind of takeaway point is we've had matchups where pull trigger, whoever pulls the trigger first loses.
Yep.
Right? And that's like pretty defined, right? We've had formats in the past where if you pull the trigger first, you're gonna lose. So don't pull the trigger first. So you get into these weird back and forths. The problem is right now is that we're in a format where, that meme where it's like somebody call an ambulance, but not for me. Like, sometimes you can be pulling the trigger first and then your opponent cancels or counters and you're like, I've got the counter for the counter, right?
Yep.
And so like that situation can come up. And so understanding the play lines, getting the reps on the deck, figuring out like what the options are or like where your opponent's going to push or not, is going to be super important. And like it's not. It's one of the reasons why, like knowing what to mulligan for is super huge.
Yep.
Knowing when to pull the trigger on things like popping your Lycaon, right? Like, I popped your Lycaon so that you never had Lycaon on my turn.
Yep.
So then that diminishes the value of it, right? And you know, you don't think about that all the time, but it's also like, hey, do that, you know?
Yeah.
And that just comes with reps. So I hope this was helpful. Did you find that you learned something here in this tutoring session?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I guess I never appreciated, at least for this particular matchup, how Violet, with her manipulation through discard and getting effects through card discard, almost plays around the ability to counter that you have in this deck. So it's interesting, and we'll see how it unfolds as more cards get put into the format.
Yeah,
but
the meta
this is a lot of fun.
The meta, the matchup here, at least in game 1, presumably potentially in game 2, like presumably we're going to a game 3 here, right? But we're coming up on an hour, so you know, that's probably not going to play out. But like this matchup's win percentage is like game 1, like a 60-40 Lycaon's favor, and game 2 should go significantly more in Lycaon's favor, because of things like quenched fires and like the sideboard tools, and like there's not really a ton that Violet can actually sideboard, at least from this traditional version that we've seen. One thing to keep in mind for those of you who are watching or thinking about Violet is that a lot of Violet players are shifting to they're shifting more to a slightly slower but dark version with black to be able to play things like Suya and discard. Things like Scorn of Dark, or the Dark Alice's Smile, like to rip things like Prescia out of your hand, or to use Violet to quickly ramp into a battle comes to an end. Like, it's evolving, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that what you'll see is that the Violets we see at this next GP and the Fieth Mooj decks that we see at this next GP are going to be significantly different. But in terms of like a game 1 60-40, like, you have to recognize that that's still just about half the time that Violet can get there. And so I think these two, I would agree that these two are the strongest decks of the format. So like, if you're going to practice, you know, go back and watch this video again. Go back and listen to the discussion we've had if you haven't done it already, and just start getting reps in, because it's not straightforward. It's not at all.
No, it's pleasantly not straightforward. At least from my angle playing this, right? Like, it's very encouraging, right? This is the current New Frontiers format, and you have this type of card interaction, you know?
Yeah, it's very the competitive environment is very much a combo format right now, right?
Yeah.
Which we've said before can be very polarizing. Some people just don't like combo formats. But it's still important to learn it, because it also will just improve your play even at the casual level. Is like being able to process and understand everything and hold everything in your head at this competitive level will translate to playing smoother at the casual level, because the casual format is entirely different than this. Like, this is, you know, from what I've seen, unless you're like at a Games and Geeks super competitive locals, like, this is not what's being played at your locals. Which is great to see that, right? But I think there is something to be said about, like you said when we started here, which I think was a great point, of even if this isn't necessarily the deck you want to be playing, it's still rewarding to learn it.
Absolutely. And you said it multiple times, right? Like sequencing, and it just, playing decks like this kind of just gets you better at that sequencing, right?
Yes, absolutely. Because it can like, I was holding on to the Brave for I purposely, seeing that you had Fiethsing available, right? I purposely sequenced it, discarding the Brave Force first to try to bait out you judgmenting Fiethsing to cancel all the damage from Violet. because I had a second Brave Force in hand. Like that level of sequencing of like, okay, how do I, here's what he can do. How do I outplay that? And so that kind of thinking doesn't come up a ton when you're just playing casually. And so there's a lot to be learned here to just improve your skills overall.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for the idea to start this series. I hope you guys who watched enjoyed it and got some learning out of it. We'll be doing these more often. And if you are a faculty member, if you join on the channel, then you are more than welcome to also get these sessions with us on a bi-monthly basis for recording or just for jamming games. So check that out. Click the membership button down below and join in and get that access. But until next time, this has been myself, DMO73, and I've been joined by Dan, our wonderful faculty member, saying, class dismissed.